The ball hangs. Not quite out, not quite in the center court, freezes in that half second after Eala's final strike, the lefty forehand that has already done its work. The scoreboard still shows the numbers that should not be possible on this lawn against this opponent. Then the roar arrives, delayed only by disbelief, and Eala drops, knees first, hands to face. The defending champion is walking toward the net, and the Philippines has just written itself into the second week of a Grand Slam for the first time in the Open era. That is the frozen frame, July 4, 2026. Eala, ranked outside the top 30 only weeks earlier, has just beaten Iga Swiatek 7-6, 11-9. 6-2 on the most scrutinized court in tennis. The crowd that had been polite is no longer polite. It is loud in a way that feels personal. What follows is not mythology. It is the underdog moment that actually happened, measured in points, in crowd noise, and in the quiet sentence Eala delivered while still catching her breath. The afternoon had already carried weight before the first ball. Swiatek arrived as defending champion and a six-time major winner. Eala arrived as the 29th seed with one prior win over the Pole and a growing reputation for making favorites uncomfortable. Grass was supposed to favor power in first strike tennis. Eala's game has never been the biggest serve or the heaviest ball. It is angles, timing, and a refusal to accept the expected hierarchy of a point. Center court has seen underdogs before. It has not often seen one from the Philippines reach this stage. That fact sat in the air. Even a few outside the Filipino diaspora could name it. The first set lasted nearly an hour and a half. Breakpoints were saved. Momentum swung. 5-3. Eala held a set point on her own serve and watched it disappear. Swiatek forced the tiebreak. Inside the tiebreak, the champion held set points of her own. Eala kept finding answers. The final score of the breaker was 11-9. When the set finally ended, the crowd that had been following every change of direction erupted in a way that told you the underdog had already been adopted. The second set was cleaner and more ruthless. Eala broke early and kept breaking. Winners outnumbered errors. Swiatek's unforced count climbed past 40 while Eala stayed economical. The slower serve that had once been a liability became a disruption. Swiatek later admitted the returns off that pace were harder to time than the big serves she faces weekly. Eala simply kept offering the same problems until the champion ran out of solutions. Match point converted, collapse, tears, the walk to the net, then the microphone. What Eala said next is the emotional center of the entire afternoon. She thanked the crowd. She called Swiatek a phenomenal player and a nice person. She admitted she was emotional. Then she reached further back than the scoreboard. I went to train every day after school with my ruffled socks, light-up shoes, and chubby cheeks. To younger me, this is everything. It is incredible to have my countrymen cheering me on, knowing that we are all in this together. This goes out to them, this goes out to my family, this goes out to all the little girls with ruffled socks and chubby cheeks. It means the world. She paused, wiped her face, and added the line that kept the moment from becoming pure nostalgia. Because she was emotional did not mean she was satisfied. Next round. Let's go. The crowd answered with volume that stayed with her long after she left the court. 2 days later, when her run ended in a 3-set battle with Jasmine Paolini, the same center court rose again. Standing ovation. Eala waved blue kisses and left with the expression of someone who understood the week had already been larger than any single result. That is the underdog texture, not a fluke result against a vulnerable champion, but a performance built on specific, repeatable strengths that happen to peak on the biggest stage available: the lefty angles, the willingness to stay in long points, the composure after nearly 90 minutes of a first set that could have broken a less steady player, the ability to turn the crowd from spectators into participants. Swiatek's own words after the match deserve space. She said Eala had been more brave in the important moments. She spoke about process rather than results. After a stretch of the season that had not gone as planned, there was no bitterness in the assessment, only recognition that the better player on the day had taken the match, and that fairness matters. Underdog stories lose their force when the favorite is turned into a cartoon. The parallel drama of the following day on the same court belongs in the margins rather than the center. World number 1 Aryna Sabalenka exited to Naomi Osaka and showed visible frustration, launching a ball high and later saying she wanted to get completely drunk and forget tennis for a while. The timing placed two high-emotion exits on center court within 24 hours of each other. The energy of the place was already elevated by Eala's win, treating the two events as one continuous story would be. Inaccurate, treating them as concurrent evidence that center court was running hot is fair. What the Eala result produced in the weeks that followed is harder to dismiss. Rankings moved, confidence compounded. By early August she had won her first WTA Tour title in Washington, beating a gauntlet of top 10 and former major champions along the way, and risen to a career-high number 20. The first Filipino player inside the WTA top 20. The Wimbledon fortnight was no longer an isolated highlight. It had become the visible turning point of a larger ascent. The vulnerability that followed the high is also part of the record. The loss to Paulini was competitive and painful. Early exits still happen. The serve can still betray her on the wrong afternoon. None of that erases the center court afternoon. It simply keeps the story honest. Underdogs who stay underdogs forever are myths. Underdogs who keep collecting evidence eventually stop being underdogs. The evidence is now substantial. 2 wins over Swiatek, multiple top 10 victories in a single season. A first tour title on a brutal draw. A ranking that places her among the best 20 players in the world, and the memory of a center court that shows her in real time, that rose for her when she fell to her knees and rose again when she left 2 days later. That is what the underdog moment looks like when it is real, not a single miracle point, but a sequence of choices under pressure that forced the sport to update its assumptions. The girl who once trained after school in ruffled socks stood on the most famous lawn in tennis, beat the defending champion, and told every version of her younger self that the dream had weight. She belongs in that conversation now, not as a novelty or a temporary story, but as a player who has earned the right to be measured by the same standards as the names she keeps beating. The room she occupies is no longer the waiting room outside the top 30. It is the room where the draws get harder and the expectations rise with every win. The work continues, of course. Rankings fluctuate, surfaces change. The next favorite will be ready, but the center court afternoon of July 4, 2026, is fixed. The score is fixed, the dedication is fixed, the crowd's decision is fixed. Eala did not ask the tennis world for permission to belong. She simply played like someone who already did, and the biggest stage in the sport agreed.